Imagine a time, long ago, in the year 1652. Our story takes us to the quiet, forgotten hamlet of Quarian, a place nestled deep in the heart of Brittany, France. Here, life moved at the pace of the seasons. Just a few dozen people called this place home, most of them humble farmers who rose with the sun to tend to their fields and their animals, working the unforgiving land as generations before them had done. It was a life of simple faith and daily hardship, where the soil was everything and the world outside felt a million miles away. But this little village, so humble and so hard-scrabble, held a forgotten secret. Something extraordinary had happened here long, long ago, more than 1,000 years earlier. The year was 610, and a holy man named St. Gall, an Irish monk on a sacred mission to share the gospel, passed through Quarian. During his visit, the village, so dependent on the land, had a problem: a lack of water. In a moment of miraculous grace, St. Gall made a spring flow from the earth, providing the villagers with the water they needed to knead their bread. He also built a small oratory, a simple place of prayer, and with his own hands he carved a beautiful statue of the Virgin Mary holding the Christ child. In time, that simple oratory grew into a small chapel, but as the centuries went by, the chapel fell into ruin. It collapsed, and the cherished statue was lost, swallowed by time and memory, buried somewhere in the earth beneath the forgotten village. Now, in this same hamlet, in this same year of 1652, an 11-year-old girl calls this quiet place home. Her name is Jeanne Courtel. From the moment of her birth, Jeanne was different. She was deaf and mute. Though her parents loved her deeply and cared for her with a tender devotion, her condition left her isolated from much of the world around her. She could not speak to the other children or hear their laughter, but her life was rich with an inner strength and a profound faith, thanks to the gentle care of her mother. She could not hear the hymns sung in church, but she knew them in her heart. She could not speak the prayers out loud, but she understood every word, every sacred gesture. Her soul was awake, alive with a quiet, burning fire. And on the 15th of August, the feast of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary, something was about to happen that would change her life, and the life of the village forever. Like many children of the time, Jeanne worked from a young age. On that day, after the church procession had passed, she returned to her daily task, her humble duty of watching over her family's small flock of sheep. But in the quiet, sun-drenched fields, where only the soft sound of sheep grazing could be heard, heaven was about to speak. That afternoon, alone in a quiet meadow known as Fontenelle's Field, Jeanne felt a gentle breeze brush across her face. It was not like the usual wind, but more like a presence moving softly beside her. She turned, her heart in her throat, and froze. Standing before her was a beautiful lady, dressed all in white, a vision of sublime grace. She was surrounded by a soft, glowing light shaped like an oval, and her face shone with a kindness that transcended all human understanding. Jeanne stared in silent wonder, but she felt no fear, only a profound and overwhelming sense of peace. Then something even more incredible happened. The lady opened her mouth and spoke. "Charming shepherdess, give me one of your sheep." Let that sink in. This child, deaf since birth, now heard a stranger's words as clearly as day. And without even realizing the impossible miracle that had just occurred, she answered out loud, her voice ringing for the first time in her life, "These sheep are not mine, they belong to my father." But the miracle didn't stop there. The lady replied, "Go back to your parents and ask them for a lamb for me." Jeanne, confused but obedient, asked, "But who will watch my sheep?" And the lady answered with a gentle smile that promised a divine protection, "I will watch them. Go now, quickly." Still unaware of the full weight of the wonder that had just unfolded, Jeanne turned and ran toward her humble home. Her heart was pounding, not from fear, but from awe, from the newness of the sounds around her, from the sheer joy of this strange and beautiful encounter. She could hear, she could speak, and in her innocence, she hadn't even noticed the miracle that had just changed everything about her world. Jeanne burst into her home, breathless with excitement. She looked straight at her father and spoke, her voice clear and full of life. "Father, a lady came to see me, and she asked for one of your lambs." Her parents froze. For a moment, a long, agonizing moment, they were utterly stunned. Then the truth hit them with the force of a tidal wave. Their little girl, the one who had never spoken a single word in her life, was now standing before them, speaking with clarity and with joy. Tears began to stream down their faces, not of sorrow, but of an overwhelming, heart-shattering joy. They were overcome, not just by what she said, but by the impossible, beautiful miracle unfolding right in front of them. Their daughter was healed. Her father, choked with emotion, exclaimed, "My child, if this lady has returned your voice, then we will not give her just one lamb, we'll give her the whole flock." Without fully understanding the monumental weight of what had just happened, Jeanne smiled and turned back towards the field, eager to tell the beautiful lady the good news. She ran as fast as she could, and as soon as she saw the radiant figure still waiting for her, she called out, her voice ringing across the meadow, "Madam, we will not give you a lamb, but the whole flock." The lady looked at Jeanne and smiled, her face filled with a motherly tenderness. Then, in a graceful motion, she bowed her head and slowly, gently, faded from view, vanishing in the light, leaving only Jeanne and her sheep in the quiet of the field. But not for long. News of her healing, of the voice that had been returned, spread like wildfire. Soon, neighbors and villagers began gathering in the meadow. Everyone was in awe, not just at the miracle of Jeanne's healing, but at who this mysterious lady might be. Many already believed in their hearts that it could be the Blessed Virgin Mary herself. Wanting answers and needing guidance, the villagers quickly decided to take Jeanne to a respected priest, Monsieur Olivier Ordiner, the rector of the nearby town of La Prenesse. Father Ordiner was no fool. Educated in canon law at the prestigious University of Paris, he had seen his share of strange stories and was not easily swayed by rumors or local excitement. But when Jeanne and her parents arrived at his rectory, everything changed. He had known this child for years. He had seen her silently sit in church, never speaking, never hearing. Now she stood before him, speaking clearly, confidently, and with a grace that could not be faked. She answered his questions with a quiet wisdom that belied her age. Even this cautious, logical priest could not deny it. Something extraordinary, something truly supernatural had happened. Though deeply moved by what he had witnessed, Father Ordiner, a man of protocol and order, did his best to remain calm and objective. He told Jeanne and her family that before making any final judgment, he would conduct a formal investigation. With that, Jeanne returned to her simple life and once again took up her duties in the fields, watching over the sheep. But the story was far from over. On the very next day, August 16th, and again on the 17th and 18th, Jeanne saw the radiant lady once more. During these visits, the mysterious figure finally revealed her identity. "I am the Most Holy Virgin Mary," she said, speaking gently to the young shepherdess. The Blessed Mother then made a simple but powerful request. "I want a chapel to be built in the center of the village. People will come from all sides." Faithful and obedient, Jeanne returned to Father Ordiner to deliver this divine message. But the priest was troubled. He could not deny the miracle of Jeanne's healing, yet the idea of building a new chapel, especially within his parish, raised serious concerns. He feared it might lead to new tensions, rivalries, or complications within the church's structure. Still, he listened, and rather than rejecting the request outright, he asked Jeanne to request a clear, undeniable sign from the Virgin Mary, something that would convince the Bishop of Saint-Brieuc, who must ultimately approve any such construction. And once again, Mary appeared to Jeanne, ready to answer that challenge. This time, she revealed the exact place where the chapel was to be built, near the spring of Saint Gall. She reminded Jeanne of the old story, the one passed down through generations, that long ago Saint Gall, the Irish monk who once visited Quarian, had brought forth a spring from the earth and carved a statue of the Virgin and Child. That statue, Mary explained, had been lost for centuries. Now, as extraordinary proof of her request, she would reveal its hidden location. "It can be found," she told Jeanne, "just a few steps from the old spring, in a place known as the pond. If they dig there," she promised, "the statue will be found, and its discovery will serve as the sign Father Ordiner asked for." The villagers wasted no time. With a mixture of hope and feverish curiosity, they gathered and began digging at the very spot the Virgin had described. And just as Mary had promised, buried in the earth and thick mud, they uncovered an ancient statue of the Virgin Mary, untouched, unbroken, and completely clean after more than 1,000 years. Overwhelmed by the find, the villagers quickly built a simple shelter from wood and branches to protect the sacred statue. And then, something even more remarkable began to happen. People started to experience miraculous healings near the statue. Word of the miracle spread rapidly, far beyond the confines of the quiet village. The very next day, Jeanne returned to Father Ordiner, this time accompanied by her parents and several respected members of the village. The priest, now truly moved and utterly convinced, listened with kindness. He knew it was time to bring the matter to the highest authority, the Bishop of Saint-Brieuc, Monseigneur Denis de Labarde. Jeanne made the journey to Saint-Brieuc with 2 local notables by her side. The bishop received them warmly. He listened to their testimony, personally questioned Jeanne, and even had her examined by trusted experts to verify the events. After the meeting, Jeanne and her companions left the bishop's residence without knowing what would happen next, but something had moved in Monseigneur Denis de Labarde's heart. A devoted servant of the Virgin Mary himself, he was deeply touched by what he had heard. Still, he wanted to proceed carefully. He assigned 2 trusted priests to carry out a formal investigation. When the results came in, the bishop had no more doubts. Convinced of the truth behind Jeanne's visions and the miraculous discovery of the statue, on September 11th, the bishop made a personal journey to Quarian. There, he spent time in prayer before the statue of the Virgin. He met once again with Jeanne, her parents, and the villagers who had witnessed the events. That day, Monseigneur Denis de Labarde formally recognized the supernatural nature of the apparitions. Later that evening, in the chapel of the nearby Château d'Angrais, the bishop blessed the first stone of the sanctuary that would be built in honor of Our Lady. Before returning to Saint-Brieuc, the bishop turned to Father Olivier Ordinet, the same cautious rector who had first heard Jeanne's story, and gave him the task of building the new church exactly where the Virgin Mary had requested. Father Ordinet hesitated. He didn't know how he could possibly raise enough money for such a monumental project. But Jeanne, still full of faith, gently reminded him. The Virgin said the money would come, she promised. And as they would soon see, that promise would be fulfilled in a breathtaking way. From that moment on, just as the Virgin Mary had promised, miracles began to multiply. Many who came to Quarian seeking healing found it, and just as Mary had foretold, gifts and offerings began pouring in from far and wide, allowing the construction of the sanctuary to move forward without delay. In 1656, at the heart of the village, a new church was completed and dedicated to Our Lady of All Help, Notre Dame de Toute Aide. The church was built in the shape of a Latin cross and crowned with a graceful tower. it became a permanent place of prayer, of pilgrimage, and of healing. As the years went by and pilgrims continued to arrive, the church had to be expanded. Between 1779 and 1792, it was enlarged to welcome the growing crowds drawn to the holy site. As for Jeanne Courtel, she lived a simple and honorable life. She eventually married and remained beloved in the community. Parish records show her name signed during baptisms and weddings, often as a godmother, a role that families saw as a great blessing given her miraculous past. Jeanne was invited to many celebrations, a quiet, gentle symbol of faith and grace. She passed away on October 8, 1703, and her tomb rests to this day in the very heart of the church she helped bring into existence, beneath the roof raised by heaven's call. And so, this is the extraordinary story of the only officially recognized Marian Apparition in Brittany, France. It is a story of healing, of hope, and of divine tenderness. If you ever find yourself in Quarian, the sanctuary of Our Lady of All Help remains open. It is a peaceful, green place, humble and quiet, and filled with the memory of a miracle. Every year, pilgrims still gather in Quarian to take part in processions honoring the Virgin Mary, and her love has not faded with time. Throughout history, Mary has appeared again and again across the world to comfort, to guide, and to lift up those who are suffering, always helping humanity find hope, even when all seems lost. And today, perhaps more than ever, we need that hope. We are living through difficult times. All around us, dark forces seem to rise, using fear, confusion, and deception to divide and weaken us. But Mary does not call us to fight fire with fire. She shows us another way. Let us respond not with anger, but with love, not with hatred, but with purity and truth. The Virgin Mary, gentle and strong, has already crushed the head of the serpent. Her power lies not in violence, but in light, compassion, and unwavering faith. It's normal to feel lost sometimes. It's human to feel overwhelmed by the chaos of the world. But let us remember, we are not alone. Mary walks with us. She reminds us that even in the darkest moments, God is near, and grace is never far away. But no matter how heavy the world may seem, let us never lose hope. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus speaks words that echo through the ages. Do not be afraid. He repeats them again and again, not just as comfort, but as a command, as a path forward. Because fear, more than anything else, is the gateway to destruction. Fear paralyzes the heart. It dims the light of faith. And once fear takes root, doubt quickly follows. Doubt in ourselves, in others, and in the God who made us. That's why today, more than ever, we must make a conscious choice to close the door to fear and to open the door to courage. To stop feeding the voices that stir up panic, confusion, and despair, and instead nourish the part of us that longs for goodness, for peace, for purpose. Each of us carries within something far greater than we realize. You are capable of far more than you think. You were created in the image of God, made for a mission, shaped for eternity. And the limits you believe you have, most of them are illusions. You can rise, you can love deeply, you can forgive, rebuild, and bring light to others in ways you never imagined, if only you dare to believe in the divine spark within you. This is the message that the Virgin Mary brings every time she appears. She doesn't come to terrify. She doesn't come to condemn. She comes as a mother, gentle, loving, and full of mercy. She comes to console the brokenhearted, to heal what is wounded, to encourage what is good and true, and to strengthen us when we feel weak or lost. Her message is always the same, no matter the place or the century. Turn back to God. Trust in His mercy. Don't give up. In a world that often seems to be falling apart, she reminds us that heaven has not abandoned us, that there is still time to change, still time to love, still time to begin again. Mary, Our Lady of All Help, is not just a figure from the past. She is a mother for today and for tomorrow. So let's carry her message in our hearts. Let's be brave when it's easier to be silent. Let's forgive when it's easier to hate. Let's hope when it's easier to despair. And above all, let's live like we truly believe that we were born for light, not darkness, for courage, not fear, for heaven, not defeat. Because with God, all things are possible. Thank you for watching. May God bless you. Amen.